April 2018, which I now call to order. The first item is to consider approval of the agenda.
So moved. Mary, would you like to second that?
Yes, sorry, I gotta turn up my volume, I apologize. Second.
Seconded by Mary. And discussion? Any discussion in the public? Discussion amongst those of us on the board? Hearing none, will those approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And
Aye.
those who disapprove, nay. And we have two members who are not present and therefore will not be voting. Thank you. The next item is to consider approving Select Board minutes of April 10, 2018, which was our last meeting. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved. Mary, would you?
Second.
Okay.
Mary seconds. Any discussion? Is there any discussion in the public? Hearing none, will those who approve signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye, and those
Aye.
disapproving saying nay. There are three ayes, and in the case of, again, the other two members who are not present, they will not be voting. The next item is public comments. Are there any? Other than to say hello to spring
Finally.
and to note by no previous plan, three of us have the same yellow sweaters and shirts on. Not sure quite how that happens, but other than that, hearing none. And the next item will be Select Board comments. I'm going to introduce those with a series of brief comments, and those are first, Mary Ann Reardon, whom many of you know, who takes the notes and recordings from not only the Select Board meetings, but the Planning Commission and other meetings, has so for some time is a really stellar and valued resource for the town. Lost her sister-in-law tragically in a plane incident recently. And for a brief moment, I'd ask all of you to observe that with a bit of silence. We wish Mary Ann and her extended family the very best, and our thoughts are with her. Secondly, I want to note just briefly that this afternoon I participated in the initial meeting of the negotiations for renewing the AFS-CME union contract. Again, I want to now introduce Rick, but before that, Colleen, who is going to speak for many of us in recognizing the services of Joe, for whom, of course, this is the last meeting.
So Joe and I basically started at the same time. He was hired by the previously sitting select board while I was running for office, and so we basically came onto the board at the same time, and it was a steep learning curve, and I was so grateful to have him as a colleague along this journey. He, we kind of like felt our way through that journey together, and always being able to rely on him and being able to bounce things off from him was a huge advantage to me as a brand new select board member. The things that he's been able to accomplish in such a short amount of time has been phenomenal. A couple of the projects that we've been able to work on together is the library. I mean, that was a big project that they had been trying for 10 years prior to get done. They knew that the library needed to be moved, and the town wasn't working with the Board of Trustees and vice versa, and it just couldn't roll. And Joe had a fantastic idea in order to form a steering committee in which there was members of the Board of Trustees and the Selectboard together, and to be able to work together to get that done. And it's the largest bond that was ever passed by the town of Shelburne. He also was instrumental in getting the stormwater plan off the ground and establish this relationship, this working relationship with the town of town of South Burlington, and get us an award. And I'm sorry, I wish I could remember the name of it, but I know it was, and we were nationally recognized.
The Stormy Award.
The Stormy Award, yeah. And save the town of Shelburne thousands of dollars and a lot of time, where we didn't have to reinvent the wheel because we had this great working relationship with the town of South Burlington. And I know that a lot of other people had many, many wonderful, great things to say about Joe, and just a heartfelt thank you. He did this. He actually got married, I think, right before you started the job, right?
After I started the job.
After the job, has had 2 children, and still done a phenomenal job for the town of Shelburne. And we're sorry to see you go. Where you're going should be absolutely grateful, and we're happy to remind them. And I also just had like a brief conversation with Jessica, who I know had many of the same thoughts that I have, that I had, and was hoping that she'd be able to mention a few of the things that she noted about you as well.
Right.
Yeah, you bet.
I just wrote down just a few of the projects, but I mean, Joe and I have been working on the Bay Road bridges and trying to figure out, do we have to replace the whole thing? Can we do them smaller? We worked with Senator Mazza, did some really cool things. The speed limit, getting the speed limit lowered was a big, huge project, and bringing legislative counsel in and working with a group. The dog park, getting that going and really figuring out how to do the work through the DEC issues, the Department of Environmental Conservation, which they really spoke with Joe. Joe was able to get them to not declare a notice of violation, which is big. A lot of towns have gotten those for violating stormwater, and that happened way before you were here. I think that we've worked hard on open public meeting and access to public records and trying to manage that along with others in the room. And what else? Economic development with Secretary of Commerce. We've worked hard to try and figure out TIFs and various other ways to bring more economic development here into Shelburne. So lots of VTrans work on with Congressman Welch, remember, on the railroad designation and whether or not the noise issues going through the town and mitigating all of that. So lots of things. Anyhow, thanks.
Thank you, Jessica.
Okay, and then we also had a special presentation by Rick Bissett, our poet laureate. He spent 9 hours on Shelburne Farms outside today. He can barely walk, but he still managed to get here for you, Joe.
Seems like every time I get up here, these things aren't working too good. But, Joe, I've written you a personal letter here, a note. But tonight, instead of me reading this, I'm going to hand you this. This is yours. But I want to speak from the heart. Joe, it's been a pleasure to work with you. If not for your foresight, I'll never forget the day you hauled me out of the hall and said, Rick, come here. I got something I think you should look at. You printed a form for the Poet Laureate application. And you said, take it home and read it. I think you might be interested. With that, Joe, look what's happened. You have changed my life. I never dreamed I could do this. Your belief in me to put this program into place and test it. No one else in Vermont has tested it. I've sent some things to Bristol. The library and I are working together now. We've got a union together to try to get this program out. But Joe, if not for you and your foresight to make the community a little bit better, a smile, the poetry, the poems are pouring into the library now because Katie's got a bucket out there. She takes and prints pictures to go with the kids' poems. There's some poems over there that almost bring tears to your eyes because they're so sincere. They're 12 and 13-year-olds. Joe, you've put something in place for this town that I feel is going to stick forever, whether it's me or my predecessor. But I want you to know how happy I am, and I'm sure we all are. You're going forward with your life. A dream has come true for you with your family. And so I've written a little short thing that is yours.
Thank you, Ray.
Farewell, Joe. As the sun sets beyond the mountains, bidding us farewell at end of day, we wait on our tomorrow's dreams, though our journey leads way on to way. Little Robert Frost there for you. Joe, we wish you most sincerely a fond farewell and thank you too, and hope that all your tomorrow's dreams with your family by your side come true.
Oh, that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
It was a pleasure to meet your wife and family. You're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks so much. I'd like to read at this time a recognition from Jamie Hines, one of our fellow members who's not able to be here tonight. Joe, it's been a pleasure working with you for the past 5 years as a planning commissioner and most recently in my role as a select board member. Your energy, enthusiasm, expertise, and leadership will be greatly missed. You've persevered through some very challenging situations on behalf of the town and have conducted yourself with professionalism and honesty. Shelburne's loss is Hanover Mass's gain. Best of luck in the next chapter, and please come back to visit us whenever you get a chance. All the best, Jamie. And before Colleen continues, Mary, do you want to make a comment?
Well, sure, of course I do. I want to wish Joe all the luck in the world. I'm sorry I'm not there personally to say goodbye. I am, even though we haven't had a chance to work very much together while I've been serving on the select board, I had gotten to know Joe through my work on the Development Review Board. In fact, first met him when he invited me into his office when I applied for the DRB position. And I've always been impressed with Joe's work ethic, and I hope to be able to model that as a member of the board. I just wrote him this weekend a question and got an immediate reply on a Sunday, I believe. And I agree with Jamie that our loss is Hanover's gain, and I just want to say that when you come back to Vermont, you will always be welcome in Shelburne. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
And I've got a few comments, and then I will turn it over to Colleen. It happens that this is just about the 4th year anniversary of Joe's appearance before the previous town manager search committee, on which I was privileged to participate. And at that point, as a sort of test of varying descriptions, depending upon whether you were being tested or whether you thought it was a good idea or whether you thought it wasn't such a good idea, Joe was sent back country to take a good look at the Joplin Bridge, which some of you may recall had been at that time a source of great interest and controversy. And in snow and mud and whatever else, in preparation for his final interview, he climbed around all the bushes and puddles and whatnot. and spent a good deal of time back there. If we'd been anxious about whether he'd gotten lost, you might have been a little concerned. Finally, that evening, he reappeared, and and had an interview in which he was asked basically, "What would you do about this?" 4 years practically to the date, he tells me yesterday that he signed off on the final permit for that bridge. 4 years to the date, we are about to embark on another town manager search. It's a way of noting that the clock turns, the calendar changes, and some things remain the same. We will not be the same without him. That's to be said. There are many ways that you can form tributes. You can refer to accomplishments, achievements, conspicuous solutions to problems that were bedeviling the town, initiatives that he took. It's always seemed to me that the greatest tribute that you can pay a departing town manager is not only an invitation to come back, but a hearty welcome that should he decide to do so. He has served communities in this corner of Vermont in a remarkably professional and certainly successful way. And it's with a mixture of sadness and some pride that he will be welcomed back.
Thank you, Jerry.
So one thing I hope never changes, and it's probably my favorite thing about Joe, and it's the fact that you're a Yankee fan. And even though
Don't supposed to tell the Hanover folks that.
No, we're telling the world. And so we want you to be able to stand up proud and right from the get-go, like just get right on that horse. And so on behalf of the select board, we would like to bestow upon you 2 tickets to the Yankee versus Red Sox games.
Wow.
And you'll be behind home plate. And the only request, and this is a personal request, this wasn't from the select board, is that you send back a pic wearing a Yankee jersey or a t-shirt. Some type of paraphernalia, it doesn't matter, but there you go.
Wow, thank you. That's great.
We'll be watching on TV to see who you root for.
Funny.
So, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? We appreciate your indulgence. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Mary.
Sure.
Okay, the
There's
next
a delay.
item is the town manager report.
All right. I was going to mention one item of business that Mike told me about, but maybe I'll save that to the end of the meeting if you don't mind. And just, I was trying to think of something profound to say to everyone from my last meeting, and I can't match Rick or anything. I just want to say thank you, of course, to everyone, and definitely enjoyed it. Really loved working here. I leave with lifelong friends, countless people from Shelburne, both colleagues that I've worked with, who I look forward to continue with friendships in the future, and people I've gotten to know in the community. Just, it's going to be outstanding. Of course, I'll be back often, and I also want to make sure to mostly thank my wife. It's been, when I started this job, I wasn't married. I was single, didn't have 2 kids. So, the memories I have about Shelburne and starting that are the most profound that I have. And, she's definitely stuck with through some difficult times in this job. It can be time consuming, and some of the emotional part of it, as people might know, can be difficult. And she was always there for me all the time. And I really want to thank her for that. So, but thank you, everyone. I really, really enjoyed the time. Thanks.
These are one of the nicer things about a career as town manager. Sometimes they aren't all nice things, but this is one of the nice moments. Thank you, everybody. Their next item is to consider accepting the Shelburne Arbor Day Proclamation. Hey, how you doing, Gail?
Hello, Gail Henderson King. You don't know that. So before I start, I do have to thank Joe. He's just been amazing, very supportive for our committee, and there's a bunch of firsts that I have to recognize. He's the first town manager that has come to a working session to learn about the care of trees. I mean, how many town managers do you know do that? That's pretty impressive. He took some time out of his day. He also, first town manager I know who came to learn about the tree inventory out on the Agency of Natural Resources website, and he stayed and learned about it. I mean, again, he's got enough other things to do in his life here, and he came to our committee. But the best first of them all is the day that we needed the Tree City USA application signed. I was panicking because I could not find Joe. Obviously, he was up at the hospital, so I'm, calling Ann, Janda, and saying, "Can anybody sign this for me?" I was like desperate. I was gonna go to the Selectboard, and all of a sudden Joe piped up, "I can do it." It's like, "Aren't you busy?" "Yeah, just come meet me up at the hospital." So I drove up in front of the hospital, stopped, got out. Joe signed the application and went back in. That is the first. And I truly am very thankful that you did that, because we actually got the Tree City USA designation. But anyway, thank you. We'll greatly miss you. And the town of Hanover, Massachusetts is definitely benefiting. But do stop in and see us.
I will. Thank you.
Anyway, so a couple quick things. We wanted to give you a quick update on as you all saw, we have been designated as a Tree City USA town, which is really awesome and amazing. There's going to be an official award ceremony on Thursday, May 3rd, which is the day before Arbor Day, but that's when the state holds their Vermont Arbor Day conference. And it will be at the Vermont College of Fine Arts in Montpelier, and there'll be a ceremony and an award, and we'll actually get our Tree City USA signs, which will be really cool. We still don't know where we're supposed to put them, and we don't know how many, but it's going to be very cool anyway. So our tree committee members and our tree warden will be there, and we would love to have the select board and or former town manager, future town manager come. So want to extend that invitation to you. And then for our Arbor Day celebration, we actually have a series of celebrations this year. We are starting with at the Thursday, May 3rd celebration with getting our Tree City USA designation. Then on Saturday, May 5th at 1 o'clock out on the parade ground, we're going to have an official ceremony. We have a big Arbor Day, Town of Shelburne Arbor Day banner that we've got printed that we are going to put up. We're going to have a series of things. One of the things we'll be doing is hopefully having our proclamation read and giving away compliments of Branch Out Burlington, some tree seedlings. But the big event of the day is we're going to be replanting the 5 Korean maples that were originally around the War Memorial on the parade ground. They got dug up last year at the request of the War Memorial Committee, because they just weren't the right tree for that area, and they've been held over winter, and they will be planted. And we'll have an official planting ceremony, and they're going to be planted along Falls Road, along the town space. So we would love to have the select board members come. We actually would love to have the chair or anybody else read the official proclamation, which is the other reason we're here. So one of the pieces of the Tree City USA designation is that we hold an Arbor Day celebration, and then an official proclamation is read. So it's pretty. This is pretty standard. Nothing too fancy in it, but it's really just supporting trees and how that and acknowledging that the town supports taking care of trees. So we would we put the town manager down to sign it, but if the select board would like, chair or whoever would like to sign it, but we would like to have this officially signed by the town, that then would be read at our Arbor Day celebration on Saturday, May 5th.
So this is May 5th, but
Yes.
it's in Montpelier?
No. May 3rd is
5th
in
is here.
Montpelier. May 5th is here in the parade ground. May 3rd is a Thursday.
Yeah.
The actual Arbor Day in Vermont is Friday, May 4th, but we decided that we're not going to get anybody to attend anything, nor can we do it on Friday, so we are doing it on Saturday. And we realize this is the opening day of baseball season, and there's a whole lot of other things going on, but at 1 o'clock on the parade ground, you can take a little break, bring your hot dogs over or whatever, and come and join us in celebrating trees.
Would you
I'll be
like to
there.
read it, Gil? You want me to?
If you would like to read it, go ahead. That would be great.
I'd be honored.
Okay.
Whereas, in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, we so proclaim. And if the board likes, is there a motion to affirm that proclamation?
So moved.
Mary,
Yes?
would you care to second that?
Second?
Second. Is there any discussion? Any discussion in the public? Hearing none. Will those who approve signify by saying aye?
Aye.
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 Mary is voting aye. There are again 2 not present and therefore no votes, 2 members not voting, and we so proclaim.
Congratulations, Gail.
Thank you.
Congratulations
Committee.
Thank you very much.
on your effort.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I can't wait to see those Tree City.
Yeah, the sign.
Yeah.
I know.
Is it
they're
an
gonna-
elm? What is it that's on the,
I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe it'll be maple, since maple is the Vermont tree.
Yeah.
So one last thing I just wanted to mention. So our official celebration for Arbor Day is on Saturday, May 5th, but also on Monday night, May 7th, we are finally holding our tree identification workshop that was scheduled for this winter several times and kept getting canceled. So just want to mention that as well, and would love to have anybody attend that as well. So
One
Is that
success
here?
follows another, Gail, right?
Is
yes,
that
that'll
here?
be here in the town offices. So we'll be getting word out on all of these events in the Shelburne News and Front Porch Forum as well. So anyway, thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.
I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you both for all the help.
Yeah, thank you.
The next item is to consider confirming, approving the interim town manager contract with Lee Crone. Lee, who, for the few who may not know him, is with us this evening. And this contract, which was signed actually a few days ago, is being affirmed this evening.
Would you like a motion?
Yes,
So move
Please.
to approve the interim town manager contract with Mr. Lee Crone.
Second?
seconded by Mary. Is there discussion?
So, I would ask you something, Jerry. I don't know if I sent it just you and Jamie, Jerry, because I knew that you guys were kind of the point persons, and I don't know what the contract says because I haven't really been involved in it. But I want to make sure that it's clear that at the transfer of authority or whatever you want to call it, happens at a time and date certain. So I don't know if the contract says that lease starts on Monday, but I think it should be clear that his authority as town manager under the charter starts at 5 p.m. this Friday.
The 27th.
In the event that an unforeseen incident happens over the weekend, we don't want there to be some sort of uncertainty about who has charter authority. So I would recommend, if it doesn't say that in the contract, maybe you could do it by a separate motion or something that affirms that Lee will take control via the charter starting 5 p.m. on Friday.
I think what we'll do is take up the transfer authority in a second
Okay.
following motion. That should,
So move that the transfer of authority from the previous town manager to the prospective town manager, Mr. Lee Crone, occur at 5 p.m. on Friday, April
27.
27th.
yeah, we can take that up now, Mary, with your permission.
Sure?
Or second.
There's second.
Yes?
Seconded by Mary. Any discussion? In which case, will all of those who approve signify by saying aye?
Aye.
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 And those disapproving, nay, and 2 non-votes. In which case, we have established the transfer of authority as of 5 p.m. This Friday, the 27th. Now, returning to the original motion to affirm, is there any discussion? Hearing none, will those of you who approve signify by saying aye?
Aye.
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 And those opposed, nay. Thank you, Mary. Ayes have it, in which case, welcome. The next item is to consider appointments to commissions, boards, and committees. We have two committees to which we are interested to appoint members tonight. The first is the Town Manager Search Committee. And the second is the Water Commission. In the case of the Town Search Committee, is there a motion to nominate?
So I have 2. Would you like them in separate motions? Probably, huh?
I think it'd be
Okay.
probably useful to do one, to do them together.
Oh, okay. So I would like to nominate Jessica Brumstead and Diana Vachon to the selection committee for or the interview committee for the town manager.
There a second?
I'd be happy to second that. I understand, if I can understand properly that these nominations for Jessica Brumstead and Diana Vachon would be core voting members, is that right?
That's correct.
Full voting members.
Second?
That's correct. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, will those who approve signify by saying aye?
Aye.
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 And those disapproving saying nay? The ayes have it, in which case, welcome Jessica and Diana by some remove. There was an additional nomination that our fellow member Josh Dean wished to make, in which case we have already approved the membership. It's an embarrassment of riches, obviously, in town to find any of dozens of our fellow residents who could serve with distinction and great commitment on the committee. At some point, you simply have to limit the numbers so that it's manageable, and which we are doing so. But we thank Josh for his interest. He nominated Joan Lennis, and at another point in time and place, that would have been a valuable addition. But we thank everybody to this point for their interest. Tomorrow night is the initial meeting of the search committee as a whole. Those are public meetings, and we, on behalf of the leadership, such as it may be determined tomorrow night of the committee, we welcome anyone's participation and presence. Thank you. The next item is to consider appointment to the Water Commission. Mr. Day, who is here, would you like to?
I think in a prior select board meeting, I discussed my credentials briefly, so I won't shoot the horse a second time. I did have a fairly extended conversation with the chair of the Water Commission. We discussed what his interest was in adding a new member, and I think both of us agreed that although my background is more in land use than in water management, that I could assist the commission in a lot of the technical and document review that takes up a lot of its time, and would be happy to serve if that is deemed helpful by the select board.
Thank you, John. I think you're going to be an extremely valuable addition to the commission, not least for the larger mission and interest it will be taking necessarily in stormwater mitigation. And it seems that you are going to bring some unique skills and experience in the larger perspective of those issues, which we will enjoin before too long and will be with us for a period of time, I'm sure. So I couldn't be more pleased at your interest. We also appreciate the chair of the Water Commission who spent the time to vet Mr. Day, and in consistent with what we have set in motion here, as some of you know, to make sure that the receiving committees or commissions or boards are welcoming of nominees. And in this case, they certainly are so, and it's a credit to you, John, as well. Is there any other discussion?
No, just that I like.
Yes.
Mary? Excuse me.
That's okay.
I just want to say, talk about embarrassment of riches. I think the Water Commission, first of all, the Water Commission and also the Stormwater Advisory Committee are both doing great work, and I think we should be very thankful for that. But I can personally attest to John Day's qualifications, and his willingness to serve, I think, is going to benefit the town tremendously, and I'm very thankful for that, and very happy that he's going to be on the commission. I think everybody will remember that he appeared a couple of meetings ago to be on the Planning Commission, and he was very generous in ceding to Mr. Selin, and is now willing to throw his hat in the ring once again for the Water Commission, and I think the town is going to really benefit. Very pleased by that, and I do think we suffer from an embarrassment of riches in this regard, and it's a good problem to have.
Thank you. Colleen?
Okay, so move to appoint John Day to the Water Commission for a term starting tonight.
And he's taken over for a seat that Mike Abrams held, which there's 1 year remaining, so it'd be through 4/1/2019.
Through 4/1/2019.
So moved. Mary?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, will those who approve signify by saying aye.
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 And Mary indicates aye. And those disapproving? Thank you, John, very much.
Thank you, John.
You know, we appreciate your interest and your patience, and we greatly look forward to your participation. As a brief note, some of you have followed the nominations to the search committee in some detail, and recall that we set up 10 nominations, 2 each from the 5 board members, 3 so-called core members, meaning consensus nominees on the part of the entire board, and 2 ex officio members, one of which is Ann Janda, the administrative director. We're slightly altering that at this point and anticipate appointing not only the 10, but 4 core members with 1 ex officio. That leaves a vacant position, and it's been our joint decision to wait until our 2 colleagues return so that they can participate in discussing filling that remaining vacancy, that remaining core vacancy. That person will miss the first meeting, but we're pretty confident that we can catch them up. So there will be 15 members, 14 of which are full and voting, one of which is ex officio, and beginning tomorrow night, 14 of those members will be present if Ann is able to return from out of state in time. It's another example of Joe's dedication, by the way, that he's been willing to fill in tomorrow night to cover for Ann, who again is out of state. Thank you. And next item is to approve liquor license requests, in which case we constitute ourselves as the local liquor control commission. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Mary, seconded by Colleen. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, those approved signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, Mary votes aye, and those opposed nay, and 2 not voting. As the local liquor control commission, we are approving licenses for,
So
Tina Hesler?
there's 2 here, and unlike the past, these are both new applicants, so I can't report from the police if there was any previous incidents or anything. So we have no history, but also no reason as staff not to recommend approval to the board, at least no known reason. So first is Rand Vermont Investments LLC, that will be operating out of the Quiniesca Golf Course, and they are applying for both a first class and an outdoor consumption permit, so 2 of them.
is there a motion to approve that new liquor license, first class and outside consumption?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Mary,
Second.
seconded by Colleen. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, those approved signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes have it. And the other is...
Okay, the next one is this is for the new restaurant that's moving in near Harrington's. And they're going by Peg and Turs LLC, and they are applying for a first class license.
So moved.
So moved. Mary,
Second.
second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, those approving signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those disapproving, nay. The ayes have it, in which case we resume general session and discontinue as the local liquor control commission. The next item of business is to consider approving Town of Shelburne applications to the Vermont Municipal Bond Bank for debt service for the library building project in the amount of $1 million.
So Peter and I will take it from here, and we're going to be recommending the board actually consider, and I realize this change sounds large, and so hopefully we can talk through it, but instead of locking in $1 million, Peter and I spoke further today. I sent out this memo or email to the board, which is included in the packet, to actually lock in at $2 million, so we can talk about that. I don't mean to minimize the difference between $1 million, but you have to understand, and Peter can help with this, the difference between financing through the bond bank, which is locking in with the long-term rates, and also doing the short-term financing that we have done in between. So hopefully I can at least kick this off and Peter can jump in. And what we're trying to do through this approach is minimize / eliminate the risk, I should say, of just paying interest for no reason on $6.5 million. It would make no sense for us to take out more in long-term debt than we actually absolutely need at any given time, or then you're just paying interest for 20 years for no good reason. So we've been establishing the financing mechanism is where we're taking out a short-term line of credit, and then we're taking out a long-term bond, basically to repay that line of credit for the exact same amount. So we're not, again, paying unnecessary interest expenses for 20 or 30 years. So over the life of the bond, it'll save a substantial amount of money. So we've done our best to determine the amount that will reduce that or eliminate that. The select board did authorize the town take out $1 million from the line of credit in December, and on December 15th.
Yep.
And so we will go through that absolutely by the middle of the summer. So originally the idea was the $1 million that we would apply for immediately would just repay that. Peter can talk more. We've looked at the finances a little bit closer, and we think that locking in right now or applying for $2 million makes more sense. And again, at this point, it's just an application. The select board would have a further motion in the middle of the summer to determine the exact amount. We just need to know how much to apply for. I hope I'm not confusing it more than clarifying it, but Peter can help too.
I think that's right, the way you described it, Joe. Most of major projects like this are financed through the Vermont Municipal Bond Bank. These are municipal bonds, tax exempt, that the bond bank goes to market for. It saves us having to do a credit rating for the town. So a lot of large projects you'll find are financed through them. The town center, for example, was financed through the bond bank. And we're in that window where the bond bank only goes to market certain times of the year. And we're in that window right now to apply for that financing. And looking at where we're at with the library project right now, and I do apologize for the late change in $1 million to $2 million, but probably by the end of the summer, we will have spent about $2 million on the project based on the cash flow projections the contractors have provided. So it seemed it makes sense to lock that in at a long-term bond at this point in time. That way, we're expecting probably rates are not going to be going down in the next year, so it would be a good time to go to market and finance this piece of the project. So that's what we're asking for at this point, is to apply for that. It doesn't require any board signatures or anything. That will come later. The bond bank will get back to us after we file our application and hopefully approve it. At that point, we can finance that amount or anything less than that amount. So we are talking to other financial institutions about what the optimal way is, but given that we expect we'll be out $2 million into the project by late summer, that's the time the bond bank funds would be available. It seemed to make sense to at least apply for up to that amount. We will revisit that when we hear back from the bond bank as to whether our application is improved, and we'll discuss at that time with the board whether we finance the full $2 million at that point or something less than that. So that's the logic behind why we increased it. As Joe said, we do have a line of credit right now with Union Bank that we're paying it's a one-year line of credit. We're paying the day-to-day costs of the project with. But again, you want to roll those into a long-term loan at some point, and that's what we're trying to do. And then keep phasing as the project moves along, probably go back to the bond bank again and look for financing the rest of the project as it moves forward.
So I just have a question, and then the second is a comment. But do you know how, by doing this, how much it saves the town by locking in now?
That's really hard to answer because we don't really know what the bond rates are going to be. All they provide are estimates at this point. But right now, the line of credit that we have is a 1% interest rate. So we would pay that off and then roll this into the bond. Long term, the bond bank rates are probably about 3% or so over that 20-year period, less in the early years and more in the following years. But I don't have a hard and fast number to give you, given how rates move around at this point.
And then my second was just a comment. It was just thank you. Thank you for just continuing to look at it to see about ways to save the town money. And by the end of the summer, the goal for the construction timeline is that by the time winter hits, that the main shell of the building will be up. So it continues to save the town money where we don't have to winterize the building. And all the work that'll be done during the winter will be inside.
And just maybe to get back to your question, Colleen, and Joe touched on it, when you go to the bond bank and apply for that money, you get it all at once. whether you've spent that money or not. So you're on the hook for those payments. It's like financing a car. You know, once you borrow that money, then you're up. You have an amortization schedule that you have to adhere to. So by phasing into it, we're minimizing those costs until we get up to the full $6.5 million, or hopefully something less than that, depending upon what the donations turn out to be. So it's trying to phase into that full payment rather than doing it in one just big application.
Okay. So,
All set?
yeah, move to approve the Town of Shelburne application to the Vermont Municipal Bond Bank for debt service for the library building project in the amount of $2 million.
A second, Mary?
Second.
Second?
Yeah, second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, will those who approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. I'm going to issue a correction, but to myself, because I've been reminded that this is a town center project, not exclusively a library project. And I'm one of the most guilty in continuing to refer to it as the library project. So Colleen politely and Kathy politely, and there are probably some who not so politely have reminded me on occasion recently that it is a town center project and most appropriately identified as such. The next item is to consider executing documents to the state's revolving loan fund for the sewer system collection improvements approved as part of a $3 million bond passed by voters in 2015 in the amount of $1,831,153 for work to be completed this summer.
So similar nature, except instead of the item that we just did, this is an exact amount that we're applying for. We have work that is ready to go, shovel ready for this summer for the sewer collection system. This is a bond that was passed by voters at, I believe, a special town meeting in November 2015 for $3 million. And this should tell you, along with the item above, for folks in Shelburne, there's going to be a lot of construction going on in Shelburne this summer, and a lot of it will be in the village. Some of the sewer collection projects will be very close to where the town center project is, so you should be prepared for quite a bit of construction this summer, starting shortly after Memorial Day. Some above ground, some below ground. And so this is an application, again, for the State Revolving Loan Fund for a little bit more than half of the $3 million. I don't know if Peter has anything else to add to that, or...
Yeah, some of the board members may recall that you've been signing some of these loan agreements previously for the same project for the design phase. That's all now being rolled into this $1.8 million bond. So. And it will be through the Agency of Natural Resources. It's administered by the Vermont Bond Bank, and it's a 2% interest rate for 20 years.
And I think it's fair to say, sorry, just so everyone's clear on the jargon here, the State Revolving Loan Fund is the bond. It's just for wastewater type projects. It's just kind of referred to as something different, but this goes through the bond bank as well.
So move to execute documents to the state's resolving loan fund for the sewer system collection improvements approved as part of the $3 million bond passed by voters in 2015 in the amount of $1,831,153 exactly for work to be completed this summer.
Second.
Seconded by Mary. Is there any discussion on the public's part? Hearing none, will those who approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those
Aye.
disapproving, nay. The ayes have it. The next item is to consider approving a grant application to AARP for a bench in the village. And Jane Zanotti is here to make a presentation.
I didn't really prepare specifically to make a presentation. I had sent a description through Joe for the select board, but I'm Jane Zanotti, and I facilitate the ad hoc group of residents that we call the Village Pedestrian Safety Group. And I guess I would be remiss not to say, Joe, thank you so much for how closely and you've worked with us and helped us to move forward in the last 2 years, and we really wouldn't have made the progress that we have without your support.
Thanks.
So thank you.
Thank you.
So this grant through AARP came to our attention just at the end of March, and we didn't have our meeting until April 17th. So we're on and the grant is due May 16th. So we're on a very short timeline, and we had a very vibrant discussion at our meeting about ideas for this grant. These are small grants. It's called the AARP Community Challenge 2018, and they're grants to make communities livable for people of all ages. And these are small grants of a couple $100 to a couple $1,000. So given the short timeline, we finally came to the conclusion that we would like to install a bench along the La Platte. There's one there now, but if you head south, there's a big long stretch without any place for people to sit. It just seems like a perfect project given the trees that are going in further north. We're going to have some improvements done this summer to the crosswalk at the cemetery that will really help to define that crosswalk. The bench will just help to make this look like a vibrant, pedestrian-friendly area and contribute to the sense of parkland. Our goal being to slow traffic along Falls Road. We now have a speed limit of 30 miles an hour. We have all sorts of signage and radar speed feedback signs. We're going to have new signs installed as soon as the crosswalks get repainted right in the center of each crosswalk in the village. One of those upright signs that say state law requires for drivers to stop for pedestrians. So a lot of things happening to improve pedestrian safety in our village and calm traffic. While this seems like a little simple grant, I just think will enhance the aesthetics and livability in our village.
So
Thank you, Jane.
There is a similar bench there in that area too.
There's a bench
So you can kind of
up further-
visualize it if you
right,
go
right.
by the area. You can kind of see
Yeah.
there'll be another similar bench to it.
And the goal is to buy a bench that will, the same style bench that the library is going to be installing and that are currently on the parade grounds. So there'll be a connection in the village. We very quickly pulled, fortunately, people from the library and from the Bikes Paths Committee were willing to come to our meeting last Tuesday to, participate and support our efforts. So we just, especially since we are not an official town committee, we need the select board's permission and, I guess, to.
Well, actually, any grant that we
Yeah.
apply for,
Right.
whether it's $1
Right.
or $1 million, needs by charter select board approval.
Right.
So,
And we don't have an exact dollar amount. We know the bench is $1,100. We have to consider, a cement pad for it to get installed in. We don't know yet what that would cost or whether there would be, we'd have to discuss with the town whether there'd be an in-kind contribution for that or whether we'd have to hire someone to actually install the bench. So once we have this, hopefully an approval tonight, we would proceed with refining our budget. But it's clearly not going to be more than a few, $2,000 to $3,000 probably.
good job.
No.
Lots of hard work.
Well, I have to say that Janet Nunziata is the one that brought the grant to our group. She's a member of our group. So we wouldn't have even known about it if she didn't bring that idea to us. So we still have to write the grant too.
No, I think this is a terrific initiative. It speaks volumes about the commitment of fellow residents to resolve problems in a certain area and anticipate a town-wide effort at some point to address these same problems elsewhere. And we couldn't be more appreciative of the effort that's going to go into the application, which should be quite competitive. And we certainly thank you and all of the group, a number of whose members are here tonight, for taking this step and being willing to contribute the hard labor to put it together. So We certainly thank you.
So
Is there,
Move to approve the grant application to AARP for a bench in the village.
Second?
seconded by Mary. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Those who approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and those opposed, nay. Thank you, Mary. Thanks. Thanks again.
Thank you, James.
We also now, the next item is to consider appointments of selected town officers. Those include the fire warden, the emergency management director, the town service officer, and the town health officer.
Yep. So the fire warden for many years has been Bob Worcester, and Chief Wimett, I'm recommending should be the fire warden moving forward. The emergency management director, and we should also add coordinator. They're actually two distinct positions, but have been filled by Bob Lake in the past. Town service officer has typically been the town manager, so I would recommend, at least for the time being, that Lee would fill that role. And then Bob Lake has also filled historically the town health officer position. So I would recommend the board approve Jerry Wimett as the fire warden, Bob Lake as the emergency management director, the emergency management coordinator, and the health officer, and Lee Crone as the town service officer.
So moved as stated.
Second?
Thank you, Mary. Seconded. Is there any discussion? Hi, Sue.
Yes. Did you mean Craig Worcester?
Did I say Bob? I'm sorry. I said Craig. Craig Worcester has been the fire warden for.
I just didn't know if it was.
But
Yeah,
you're-
yeah. Sorry.
But you're suggesting
But
now
Chief Wimett
Jerry
absolutely should is being recommended to be the fire warden moving forward.
So I don't need to change my.
Nothing changes in the motion.
My
No.
motion. It
Thank you,
stands.
Susan. Any other comment? Hearing none. Will those of us who approve signify by saying aye?
Aye.
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 And those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, Joe. The next item is to consider approving the annual financial report for the Vermont Agency of Transportation.
So hopefully you received this in your packets. This is an annual item. I'm not sure what else to say about it. Peter put it together. The statement looks accurate to me, and I recommend the board approve this. Again, this is something that we have to do annually.
That's basically
So moved.
our 2018-19 budget, highway budget that the state requires us to file with them annually in the categories that are on the sheet there.
So Mary already moved and I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve submission of the plan. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Will those who approve signify by saying aye?
Aye.
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 And those disapproving, nay. The ayes have it. Can we make the further announcement with what we learned today at this time, or should that wait until May 8th?
Yeah, no, thanks. I would like to say that now. This is part of the town manager report. So I am reporting from my source in the audience, Mike Donahue, who usually calls me oftentimes with things before I know them, but he attended the meeting, so I'll take his word for it. They haven't posted the minutes, even though the window of opportunity has come and gone, but I have learned, and this is significant for Shelburne, that the state 911 board has voted to tentatively eliminate our funding as a PSAP, effective at some date in the future. I don't think it's immediately, but maybe in a year or so. And it sounds like they're getting ready to transfer. I'm paraphrasing, and Mike was there. He called me and said, well, what did you hear about this? And I said, well, you're the first to tell me about it. I had a bad feeling that something like this could certainly take place. And I believe they tentatively have signified or signaled that it is going to be transferred, our funds, along with some funds that go to Williston or somewhere else, to the Chittenden County regional entity that the other 6 communities voted to approve. So I wanted to let this board know as quickly as possible. And, again, I told this to Mike when he called me on the phone about any comments. And, I guess I would just recommend that Shelburne's going to have to, strongly consider whether or not it's going to stay on its current position of kind of doing dispatch on its own. And maybe not, I would, recommend continuing to consider all options before, because that's a significant amount of income that comes into that department. So, want to let you know. Mike was at the meeting. I wasn't there.
Well, Lee is being introduced to a world of opportunity beginning Friday afternoon. This is not the least of them, and we will certainly take up the matter at some near future meeting, and at least to the point of stating what the options are and considering a course of action from there.
And it's about in the budget that we've approved. It's about $75,000 to $80,000. That's about the amount of money that we're looking at. And I apologize. This feels like a bad joke, but I did finish the Lee Open, and I realized that I didn't send it out to anyone. So Lee has it for the next meeting. The world will keep on spinning. You can approve it on May 8th or whatever the next meeting is, just so you can see it in advance.
Okay. So
Okay.
move to table approving the local emergency operation plan until the next meeting on May 8th.
May 8th. Mary?
I'll second that.
Mary seconds the motion to table this item until May 8th.
I mean, the good
at
news
May
is
8th meeting.
the new photograph of the select board is on the website. So we got that.
Oh, there you go.
Super. Is there any discussion? Any in the public? Hearing none. Will those who approve signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. And those
Aye.
and those opposed, thank you, Mary. Nay? The ayes have it. We have 2 or 3 minutes. Lee, would you like to make a comment on your appointment as interim town manager?
Just like to say thank you to the select board, thank you to the community and the staff for your confidence in me, and I'll certainly do my best to help this community continue to move forward however I can.
Thank you.
That and rooting for the Red Sox is going to get you everything.
Not so.
And
Not
so,
so.
and
Not
on
so.
just on logistics here on these documents, I'm not sure about. I'll have to ask Diana since there's 2 board members here. Mary, I don't know. Will we be able to get signatures from you on liquor licenses and bond documents soon?
Yeah, you could email it to me, and I could scan it back to you if that's acceptable.
Well, I guess Peter for the loan documents, and Diana will have to figure out. I'm not sure what their requirements will be for those documents to be official. I mean, obviously they're approved by a quorum of the board, so that part's fine, but we have to now get signatures. So we'll get 2 now, and we'll have to track down Mary's in the future.
Because we should get Jamie back next week. And Mary, yourself?
Yes, I'll be back.
Yeah, so. All right, is there any further discussion?
Move to adjourn?
Colleen moves to adjourn. Is there a second?
Sure.
Thank you, Mary. Any discussion? Hearing none. Will those who approve signify by saying aye?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Mary. And those disapproving, nay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy spring.